Welcome back to the deep dive. This time we're diving deep into some ancient scriptures to uncover what they tell us about angels and demons. Get ready for rebellions, cosmic power struggles, and some seriously intriguing connections.
It's crazy how those classic stories, good versus evil, heroes and villains, how those themes echo in these ancient texts. We're talking about stories that have been passed down for thousands of years.
Thousands of years and they still resonate. We're mainly using Angels and Demons from Creation to Armageddon by Joseph Lumpkin for this deep dive. He really went all in, researched these ancient Jewish and Gnostic texts, fascinating stuff. And you've probably heard about Lucifer's fall from grace, right? That classic story.
Oh, yeah, the ultimate fall from grace.
Exactly. But here's the thing, Lumpkin presents this idea that it wasn't just a one-time event, It was more like the beginning of this whole pattern of rebelling against what God intended.
Right, it's like this ripple effect. First, you have this massive angelic rebellion up in heaven, and then, bam, humans follow suit with the Garden of Eden. But it doesn't stop there, and that's where these watchers come in.
Watchers. Even the name has this mystery to it. Now, these were angels, right? Tasked with, watching over humanity. It's like they were supposed to keep us in line, but then things took a bit of a turn.
It's interesting, though, isn't it, how angels are kind of absent from the creation story in the Bible. They're like this hidden force operating in the background.
Right, like they were always there, but not explicitly mentioned. And even in this hidden world, there's a hierarchy. Lumpkin points out that the Bible actually mentions three distinct types of heavenly beings. You've got angels, who seem to have this military structure like a celestial army.
Yeah, like ranks and orders.
Exactly. Then there are the seraphim and the cherubim, each with their own specific duties, their closeness to God. It's a whole complex system.
Absolutely, and it makes you wonder, where do these watchers fit in? They're given this crucial role observing humanity, but then things go sideways.
Right, that's where the plot thickens. These watchers, they get a little too interested in human women. And this isn't just a casual interest. It's presented as a straight-up transgression, a violation of God's order.
Which really makes you think about free will, right? Did they choose this, or was it all part of some divine plan?
And here's where it gets really wild. We're talking about the Book of Enoch now. Remember those giants, the Nephilim? Turns out, according to the Book of Enoch, they were the offspring of the Watchers and human women. Not just a little different, but giant. We're talking 3,000 cubits tall.
3,000 cubits, that's over 4,500 feet. It's hard to even wrap your head around something that massive. Talk about shaking things up.
Shaking things up is an understatement. But it's interesting, right? This fear of the unknown, of powerful beings, it's like a primal fear. And it feeds into all these myths and legends. Titans, giants, monsters.
Totally. It's like those Greek myths about the Titans battling the gods. Just became a whole lot more believable.
Right, and it doesn't stop there. Not only did these watchers, have children with humans, they also decided to share some forbidden knowledge.
Oh yeah, the gift of knowledge, but maybe not the best kind. Things like metalworking, astrology, even weapon making.
Yeah.
Talk about a recipe for disaster.
A recipe for disaster is right. And what happens? Well, that's when God steps in with the Great Flood. It's almost like, all right, everyone, time to hit the reset button. But what's really interesting is that things don't get completely wiped clean. So we've got this massive flood, right? You'd think that would be the end of it, a clean slate. But it wasn't that simple, was it?
Not quite. That's where the Book of Jubilees gets really interesting. It suggests that while the flood wiped out those giants, those Nephilim, in physical form, their spirits, their essence, it lingered.
Okay, now that's a little creepy. So even after this epic, world-altering event, the consequences of those rebellious angels, those watchers, it didn't just disappear.
It's like this lingering darkness, These disembodied spirits, they couldn't regain their physical forms, but they weren't just floating around harmlessly either. The Book of Jubilees says they sought to inhabit humans, animals even, and became those demonic forces that we associate with possession, torment.
So those beings that have haunted human stories for centuries, those demons lurking in the shadows, they could be, like echoes of those giant offspring? That's a chilling thought.
It adds a whole other layer to the concept of demonic influence, doesn't it? And it might explain why, even after this fresh start with the flood, we still see these struggles against evil spirits in the Bible. You've got God tasking angels, like the Archangel Raphael, with binding and imprisoning these forces.
It's like this cosmic battle is still playing out, but on a smaller scale, a more personal level, even within ourselves. So where does this leave us with understanding evil? Is it something external, a consequence of those fallen angels? Or is it something inherent in us, in humanity itself?
That's the big question, right?
Mhm.
And it's one that different traditions have wrestled with for centuries. The Gnostic texts, for example, offer a different perspective on this whole good versus evil battle. They present this idea of a more complex, multi-layered understanding of God and creation.
Right, the Gnostics, they always shake things up. So how do they view this whole saga with the angels and demons?
Well, in Gnostic thought, the God who created our world, often called Yaldabaoth, isn't the ultimate supreme being. They see him as flawed, even cruel at times, intent on keeping humanity in the dark, quite different from the all-loving, all-powerful God we often hear about.
Yeah, it's like a different side of the coin, right? And that reminds me of the Apocryphon of John, one of those Gnostic texts Lumpkin talks about. Yaldabaoth is this jealous deity threatened by humanity's potential.
Exactly. And that's where Jesus comes in, but not in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
The Gnostics see Jesus as being sent by a higher God, a truly benevolent force, to free humanity through knowledge, to challenge Yaldabaoth's control.
So it's less about one god and more like a struggle between different divine beings with humanity caught in the middle and knowledge is the weapon. It's a wild concept. Is this idea of multiple gods something totally out there, or are there hints of it even in the Bible?
It's a question that sparked a lot of debate. There are passages like Psalm 82.1, 5-7, where the word for gods, Elohim, is plural. Some scholars point to this as suggesting a hierarchy of divine beings, even within more traditional interpretations.
So maybe the Gnostics were onto something. We've got angelic rebellion, giant offspring, maybe even a war among gods. It's a lot to process. But how does any of this relate to us now in the 21st century? What does it say about good and evil in our world today?
It really makes you think, these stories, these ancient texts, what if they're more than just stories? What if they hold a deeper truth about our place in the universe?
It's like we're trying to understand our own history, but it's so far back, so shrouded in mystery that it might as well be about another planet.
And that's what's so fascinating about these deep dives, wouldn't you say? They challenge our assumptions, make us realize that our understanding of, well, of everything, it might be a lot more limited than we think.
It's humbling in a way, so much we don't know. So if we entertain this idea that these ancient stories hold some truth, where does that leave us today?
It's a reminder, I think. A reminder that that struggle between good and evil, that cosmic battle we've been talking about, it's not confined to ancient times.
It's still playing out.
Exactly. It's in us, in the choices we make every single day, in those internal struggles we all face.
It's like those stories are holding up a mirror, showing us both the darkness and the light that we're all capable of.
Right, we have that potential within us to create, to destroy,
Mhm.
to act with compassion or with cruelty. Our choices, they matter. The stories we tell ourselves, the knowledge we seek, it all shapes the world around us.
Speaking of knowledge and these ancient stories, we talked about those giants, the Nephilim. If they were real, you'd think there'd be more than just stories, right? Like archaeological evidence, giant skeletons.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? It's a question that comes up a lot. But Lumpkin, the author we've been discussing, he suggests that maybe we're looking for evidence in the wrong places.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does he propose?
Well, he suggests that those echoes of the giants, those ancient encounters, they might be found in the myths and legends that have persisted across cultures.
We're talking about like the Greek titans, Norse giants, those kinds of stories.
Exactly. Even the Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh, which Lumpkin specifically connects to the Book of Giants. It's as if these cultures, separated by time and distance, they were all trying to make sense of something, some shared experience that was so extraordinary it had to be passed down through generations.
It's like a global memory, a collective unconscious trying to process something beyond our understanding.
And what if those myths weren't entirely fictional? What if they were humanity's way of explaining encounters with beings, with forces that we just couldn't comprehend?
So we've gone from angels and demons to giants, and now we're questioning the very nature of myths and legends themselves. It's like every answer just leads to more questions.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was about the exploration, the questioning. We may never know for sure if those giants walked the earth, if those watchers truly fell. But their stories, they remind us that we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves.
A cosmic story that's still being written, and maybe, just maybe, we have a role to play in how it unfolds. So keep searching, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.